The room was hot, crowded, and full of loud voices. Alien buyers from different worlds sat in curved rows, their eyes glowing, some with hunger, some with boredom. The auction stage was in the center, with thick lights shining down from above. Announcer, a thick-skinned lizard-like alien, shouted numbers and names in broken galactic common. A tall guard pulled a chained alien boy onto the stage. Bids were shouted, one after another, and just as quickly, the boy was sold. Then came others workers. Fighters. Even rare pets each sold and dragged away. In the back corner of the room sat a young human man, quiet and still. His name was Jace, a mechanic by trade, a nobody to most. He had no fancy clothes, no alien tattoos, no big weapons, just a small ID tag on his collar and a pouch with a few credits. The people around him didn't notice him, or if they did, they laughed. "What's a human doing here?" Someone muttered, "Probably lost or broke." Another one chuckled. But Jace's eyes were locked on the stage, waiting, and then it happened. The announcer suddenly lowered his voice, his tone growing serious. "Next item is rare," he said. "Very rare." Everyone leaned forward, curious, from behind the black curtain. Two guards brought out a figure, tall, slender, and covered in a torn silver robe, a collar around her neck, and glowing cuffs on her wrists. Her head was bowed, silver, hair falling over her face. But even with her posture low, the crowd could feel something different. Some whispered, some gasped, some just stared. It was a female alien. Young, but not a child. Her skin was smooth like stone, her eyes hidden behind her long hair. The announcer laughed nervously. "This one's complicated," he said. "No memory, no name. Found alone near a crashed ship." He looked around. "We tried everything. She doesn't speak, doesn't eat much, and doesn't obey. She's pretty, I guess." Someone in the crowd muttered, drawing laughter. "She's broken." Another shouted, "No use." The announcer raised his hands. "Starting bid, 100 credits." No one moved. Silence filled the air, thick and uncomfortable. Some buyers looked away. Some pretended to check their devices. The announcer frowned, sweat on his brow. "Fine," he said. 50 credits. Still no hands raised. "She's cursed," someone whispered. "I heard she burned a handler just by touching him." The announcer forced a grin. 30 credits, come on." That's when a single voice rang out from the back, calm and clear. "I'll take her." Heads turned, eyes searched, and all at once, they locked onto the human in the back. Jay stood up, his eyes calm but strong. The announcer blinked. "You?" he said, then laughed. "You can't be serious." Jace held up his credit pouch. 30 credits, he repeated. "Right now." The room erupted in noise laughs. Curses, gasps. "You don't know what you're buying," someone growled. "She's dangerous," a cloaked alien hissed. "She's not normal." The announcer scratched his head, confused. "Human, why her?" Jace looked at the girl on stage, then back at the announcer. "Because no one else would," he said simply. The announcer shrugged. "Fine deal," he said, banging a small hammer. "She's yours, human." The guards pushed the girl forward, and Jace walked to meet her, up close. She didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even breathe heavily. Her face was pale, her lips tight, and her hands chained together like a doll. Jace reached out slowly, unlocking her cuffs and removing her collar. Gasps filled the air again. No one touches a slave before full transfer. A voice shouted, but Jace didn't stop. The alien girl lifted her head slightly, revealing glowing blue eyes. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Everyone froze as her eyes locked with Jace's, calm and unreadable. Then something even stranger happened. Metal device on a nearby table, a scanner used for slave registration, suddenly lit up and made a high-pitched sound. The screen glowed with old alien text, and the device buzzed louder. "What ... What is that?" The announcer stammered. "That's not supposed to happen," a guard said. Stepping back, the alien girl didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at the device. And the room, once full of mocking voices, now stood in stunned silence. Jace looked around and said softly, "She's not broken." He gently guided the girl down the stairs, his hand on her back, and as the crowd parted to let them through, no one laughed anymore. They only watched, their eyes wide, their voices quiet, because they all felt it now. This wasn't just a slave. This was something more, something ancient, something powerful. And the human had just claimed it. Jace didn't know what he had brought home. The strange alien girl walked beside him in silence, her silver hair flowing behind her like soft smoke. They stepped into his small rented room above a broken workshop, metal parts scattered on the floor, wires hanging from the ceiling. She looked around with calm eyes, never asking questions, never showing fear. He pointed at the cot in the corner, then the small water basin, then food packets on the shelf. She didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even blink. Jace sighed and sat down on the floor, pulling out his toolkit. "You don't have to be afraid," he said quietly, not expecting an answer. But her glowing blue eyes were watching him closely, not like she was scared, but like she was trying to understand. Hours passed, and she still hadn't eaten. Jace placed a piece of soft bread in front of her, then looked away, pretending not to care, but he was watching from the corner of his eye. She touched the bread gently, as if unsure what it was, then slowly took a bite. She chewed like someone tasting food for the first time in years, and then she looked at Jace again, her eyes softer now. She still didn't speak. But something had changed. The next day, Jace brought her a clean robe, simple and warm. She accepted it without a word, disappearing behind the curtain to change. When she stepped out, she looked more like a person and less like a prisoner. That night, Jace lay in his cot while she sat near the window, watching the stars. The moonlight made her silver hair glow, and Jace noticed a strange mark near her shoulder, almost like a birth symbol. He thought about asking her where she was from, but he knew she wouldn't answer. Instead, he asked gently, "Do you remember anything? Your name?" She turned slowly, lips parting just a little, but no words came out. Only a flicker of something in her eyes, pain maybe, or memory. Jace decided not to press her. Not yet. In the following days they fell into a strange rhythm. She followed him everywhere, quiet but alert. When he repaired machines in the workshop, she stood close, watching his hands move. One morning, while fixing a damaged scanner core, Jace noticed she had crouched beside him. He looked up, surprised, as she reached for a small tool and handed it to him without being asked. He smiled. "You're learning fast." She tilted her head slightly, then looked away. But her fingers kept brushing the old alien circuits. As if they were familiar, Jace stood and turned to another table, when suddenly the scanner core she had touched flickered and came to life. It beeped, blinked, and glowed with a symbol he had never seen. He froze, the tool falling from his hand. "How did you do that?" he whispered. She stepped back, her expression calm but unreadable. The core continued to glow, running code that hadn't worked in over 50 years. Jace reached out slowly. Pressing a button, it responded immediately. He looked at her again, trying to understand. "You're not just some lost girl, are you?" he asked. Still no answer, but her eyes said enough. That night, Jace received a message on his communicator. It was encrypted, sent from an unknown source. The voice was low and sharp. "You have something that doesn't belong to you, human." Jace's blood ran cold. He stared at the girl, who was now asleep in the corner, her arms folded under her head. The message continued, "Return her, or others will come, and you won't like what happens then." The signal ended with static, and Jace sat frozen. Someone knew. Someone was watching. He looked at her sleeping form, so quiet, so still, but somewhere deep inside, he knew she was not just a mystery. She was a key to something dangerous, something forgotten. And now that key was in his room, under his roof, trusting him. The question was, for how long? 3 suns rose over the alien city, casting strange colors in the sky: red, gold, and violet. Jace stood at the edge of a crowded street, watching cloaked merchants and loud voices rush by. The alien girl, Sira, stood quietly beside him, her silver hair hidden under a scarf. Her eyes alert but calm. No one noticed them, not yet. But Jace knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. Word was spreading, fast and quiet. Through the underground channels of the galaxy, someone had bought a worthless slave who made forbiddens. Tech glow, someone had touched something that should have stayed buried, and that someone was a human. Jace walked quickly, guiding Sira through narrow alleys and hidden paths. He needed answers. He needed to know who she really was, and why someone had left her chained and forgotten. In a dim, half-ruined library beneath the city, he met someone who owed him a favor, an old, half-blind alien named Mech, who once worked for the Galactic Archives. Jace handed him a sample of Sira's blood, copied from the medkit. Mech looked at it through cracked lenses, his fingers trembling as he read the screen. "This isn't right," he said, his voice hoarse. "This code, it's sealed, erased long ago. What do you mean?" Jace asked, heart beating faster. "This blood, it belongs to a class that no longer exists," Mech whispered. "She shouldn't exist." Sira stood silently behind Jace, her eyes watching Mech with eerie calm. Mech stepped back slowly, almost afraid. "Your girl, she's not just rare," he said. "She's forbiddens." Jace looked at Sira, confused. "But why?" Mech swallowed hard. "There was once a royal line, powerful and secret, born with ancient tech in their blood. The council feared them," he continued. "So they wiped them out. Every last one. But they missed her," Jace whispered. "Didn't they?" Mech nodded slowly. "She's a ghost from the past." That night, Jace sat alone with Sira in the ship's small cabin. He stared at her, trying to speak, but words wouldn't come. Sira looked at him with those glowing blue eyes, as if already knowing what he had learned. "Why didn't you tell me?" he finally asked. Her voice was soft and low. "Because I didn't remember." Jace leaned forward. "Do you now?" "Bits," she said. "Flashes, dreams, screams." She closed her eyes. "I was taken. Locked away ... But someone hid me, erased my name so I could live." Jace tried to imagine it. "Being hunted by the whole galaxy just for existing. I can take you somewhere safe," he offered. "We can hide." But Sira shook her head. "They'll find me no matter where we go." He didn't know what to say. Just then, a red light blinked on the control panel. Unauthorized ship scan detected. Someone was nearby, watching. Again, Jace grabbed his pulse pistol and checked the outside cameras. Two cloaked figures moved through the shadows. Scanning the ship from a distance, he turned to Sira. "We're leaving now." But before he could say another word, the back door hissed open. Someone had hacked the lock. A tall alien stepped inside, wearing golden armor and a cruel smile. "I've come for what doesn't belong to you," the stranger said, voice calm but full of threat. Sira didn't move, didn't flinch. Jace raised his weapon. "She's not going anywhere with you," the alien laughed. "She's a royal defect, a living crime." "She's free now," Jace said firmly. "No such thing," the alien growled, and raised a glowing baton before Jace could shoot. Sira stepped forward, eyes now burning bright. She lifted her hand slowly, and the lights inside the ship exploded in a wave of white energy. The golden armored alien screamed as his weapon melted, the walls shaking with force. Then silence returned. The stranger was on the ground, unconscious, smoke rising from his armor. Jace stared at Sira, frozen. What did you just do?" He breathed. "I remembered," she whispered, her voice shaking, just a little. Jace realized something terrifying and powerful at that moment. Sira was not only from a forgotten royal bloodline. She was waking up, and with every memory, she recovered. Her strength returned. The galaxy hadn't just lost her. It had buried her because it feared her. Now she was back, and standing next to a human. The galaxy would soon learn the price of forgetting her name. Asterisk. The ship drifted quietly above the clouds of an unnamed moon, hidden in a pocket of storms where no one dared to fly. Inside the small control room, Jace stared at the stars, not for beauty, but for answers. He had no plan, no map, no backup. All he had was a royal alien girl who once sat in chains, and now stood behind him like thunder waiting to fall. Sira had barely spoken since the last attack, but her eyes were always moving, always watching. She remembered more now. Jace could feel it. It was in the way she moved, like a queen trapped in someone else's body. When she looked at him, she didn't look like a slave anymore. She looked like someone who had once commanded armies. Jace sat at the edge of the table and finally asked, "What did they take from you?" Sira stepped forward, her fingers brushing across an old datapad. "I had a throne," she whispered. "A voice, a name, a world that kneeled before me. And now?" Jace asked softly. "Now I have nothing," she said. "Except you, Jace." Didn't know how to answer that, so he stayed quiet, but in the silence, Sira did something strange. She reached out and touched his hand. It wasn't romantic, not even warm. It was steady, solid, like she was testing something. Jace didn't pull away. "I remember betrayal," she said. "I remember someone close to me giving me away." "Family?" he asked. "Blood," she replied coldly. "My own uncle." Jace's chest tightened. "Why would he do that?" She turned to face him. "Because I was the last barrier between him and the crown." He stared at her, speechless. "I was supposed to die," she continued. "But someone changed the orders at the last moment. They erased my mind instead." "Why?" he asked. "Maybe to protect me," she said. "Or maybe to keep me from ever fighting back." Jace stood up, pacing the room. "So ... You were the last true queen of Velshara," he said. "And they buried you like trash. And sold me like a thing," she whispered, eyes dim. Suddenly the ship's alarm buzzed. A small sensor near the rear doors had been triggered. Jace pulled up the screen and saw a figure standing in the fog, arms raised, unarmed. He frowned. "Another one?" But Sira leaned closer and froze. "I know her," she said quietly. "That's my handmaiden." Jace looked at her. "She survived?" Sira nodded once. "She was with me when I fell." He opened the hatch slowly, watching the figure stumble through the doorway, soaked in rain. The woman collapsed at Sira's feet, tears in her silver eyes. "You're alive," she whispered. "By the stars. You're alive." Sira bent down and touched her cheek gently. The woman grabbed her wrist. "You must return," she said. "The people wait in silence." "The throne sits empty." Jace watched from the side, his heart sinking as the truth unfolded. This wasn't a mystery anymore. This was a war being reborn. The handmaiden looked at him and said, "Who is he?" Sira looked at Jace for a long moment, then said, "He's the reason I woke up." That night, the moon lit the quiet room while Jace stood alone outside the ship. Breathing in the cold wind, Sira joined him, standing shoulder to shoulder. "I need your help," she said suddenly, her voice steady. "With what?" he asked. "To take back what was stolen," she said. "To make them remember my name." Jace looked at her face, at her strength, at the pain she never showed. "You want revenge?" he asked. "No," she replied. "I want justice." He nodded slowly. "Then I'll stand with you." Her eyes softened, and she looked up at the sky. "They'll try to kill you too," she warned. "They'll try," he said. "But I've already made my choice." And without another word, Sira reached out and gently pressed her forehead against his. It was not a kiss, not a promise. It was a silent bond, older than words. The moment she accepted him, the moment he became more than just a bystander, he was now her shield, and she was about to raise her voice across the stars again. This time, with fire, and this time, she would not be silent. The sky above the mining planet turned dark too quickly. Storm clouds gathered without warning, and the wind carried more than dust. It carried fear. Jace stepped outside the ship and looked up. knowing something was wrong. Inside, Sira stood in front of an old mirror, her fingers slowly brushing against the strange marks on her neck. They had begun to glow again, faint lines of light spreading like veins under her skin. "I feel it," she whispered to herself. "The power is waking up. The ship's warning." System started to blink red, and Jace rushed back inside. He checked the radar. 3 unknown crafts were descending fast. No IDs, no open comms, no calls, just silence and shadows. Sira walked into the cockpit, her voice calm. "They found us." Again, Jace looked at her. "You ready for this?" Sira nodded slowly. "I've been ready since the day they put chains on me." The ground shook as the first ship landed on the ridge, followed by another behind it. The third stayed in the air. Circling like a bird of prey, Jace grabbed his rifle. Even though he knew it probably wouldn't help, Sira stepped ahead of him, her hands bare, no weapons. Only her voice. The side doors of the enemy ship hissed open, and black-armored soldiers stepped out in rows. They didn't speak, didn't blink, their eyes hidden behind red visors. Then a tall woman in gold robes walked between them. Her voice echoed without a mic, filled with pride and poison. "Return the girl to her family," she said, "or be erased." Sira walked forward, her hair floating slightly as the air thickened around her. "I have no family," she said. "Only enemies." The woman raised her hand. "You were born to obey." She hissed, "Not to lead." Jace watched Sira close her eyes, and something shifted in the air. A hum began low, soft, and then rising like a storm in a bottle. Her body began to glow with pale blue light, rising from her skin like mist. Then her voice came, not a shout, but a whisper that cracked the sky. "I was born to remember," she said, "and I remember everything now." The soldiers raised their weapons, but the air exploded before they could fire. Sira lifted her hands, and blue light poured from her fingers, spinning like a living storm. One blast hit the ground, and the earth split beneath the soldiers' feet. Jace stumbled back, shielding his face as heat flooded the area. He saw her floating a few feet above the ground, her eyes shining like twin stars. The woman in gold screamed and ordered retreat, but it was too late. Sira raised her hand, and the enemy ship's short-circuited emitter crashed into the rocks like broken toys. Flames lit the dark hills, and the soldiers ran in every direction, but none dared to shoot, none dared to face her again. Jace stood there, heart pounding, not from fear but from awe. Sira lowered herself gently back to the ground, her glow fading slowly. She turned and walked toward him, her steps quiet, steady, like nothing had happened. "You're not just royalty," Jace said breathlessly. "You're a force of nature." She looked at him with tired eyes. And that was just the beginning. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for his. Not out of weakness, but something else, fear, maybe, or loneliness. "They'll send more," she said. "Stronger ones." Jace nodded. "Then we fight smarter." That night, while the flames in the hills burned low, they sat side by side in silence. Sira stared at the sky, not at the stars, but at something beyond them, something only she could feel. "They called me a weapon," she said, "but I think I'm more dangerous now because I remember how to love." Jace blinked, not expecting those words. She looked at him with that same calm face, but softer now, like a storm slowly becoming rain. "Help me find myself," she whispered, "so I will help you live." Before he could answer, she leaned her head gently against his shoulder, and for the first time since he bought her, she let herself rest. Not as a slave, not as a queen, but as something in between, a warrior who finally felt safe, even just for a moment. The sky above them began to clear, but deep in space, dozens of ships moved silently in formation. Word had reached the royal court. Siralith was alive, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Asterisk, the council chamber on Velshara Prime had not seen such silence in 100 years. Holograms of galactic leaders flickered across the grand hall, voices frozen, jaws tight, eyes wide. At the center, stood a message orb, replaying the footage over and over. A girl glowing like a star, lifting ships into the air with nothing but her hands. One word echoed each time the clip ended. Seralith. She lives, the high speaker whispered. And she remembers, back on the mining moon. Jace paced slowly near the edge of the camp. He could feel the weight building, like a storm pressing against the skin. Sira sat under the metal wing of the ship, her eyes closed, her hands resting. Over her chest, she was healing slowly, but her energy wasn't just coming back. It was growing. Every hour she seemed brighter, sharper, more certain. But with each breath of power, the danger rose with her. A message came through the ship's console, urgent, and from Earth's Central Command. They wanted answers, and they wanted them now. Explain why alien royal forces are targeting your location, it read. Explain why you're traveling with a Class X entity. Jace didn't reply, not yet. He didn't have words to explain her, not to people who feared what they didn't understand. Sira opened her eyes slowly and stood, her voice soft. They will demand my life. Jace looked at her. Earth? All of them, she replied. I am no longer just a girl or a queen. Jace, I am a reason for war. Jace lowered his head, struggling to breathe. You didn't choose this, he said. They forced it on you. But now I have to choose something, she whispered. And I choose not to run. Later that night, a shuttle landed outside the camp, black, unmarked, official. Out stepped 3 Earth diplomats and 1 silent guard in gray armor. They looked at Jace first, then at Sira, who stood quietly behind him. One diplomat said, by order of Earth Alliance, you are required to turn her over. She is not a weapon, Jace said firmly. She is not yours to claim. She is a risk, the man replied coldly. Her presence may lead to full-scale galactic conflict. Sira stepped forward slowly, her voice clear and calm. If I leave with you, will the galaxy be safe? The diplomat hesitated, then said, we hope so. Jace stared at her, shaking his head. No, don't do this. But Sira touched his arm gently. They are afraid, she said. I need to show them something greater. She walked toward the shuttle slowly, without fear. The guard stepped aside, letting her board. Jace's heart dropped as the doors closed. His fists clenched in helpless anger. But before the shuttle lifted off, it suddenly stopped mid-air, frozen, humming loudly inside. The diplomats began to panic, shouting at the pilot, smashing buttons. Then the ship opened again, not by code, not by force, but by her will. Sira stepped out calmly, her eyes glowing bright. I will not be owned, she said, not by chains, not by fear, not by peace talks. She walked back to Jace and took his hand in front of everyone. I choose him, she said. I choose freedom. The crowd watched in silence as she stood beside the human who had bought her, but never once treated her like property. Back in the stars, the royal fleet was already on the move. 1,000 ships under the banner of the false king. His orders: clear, capture, or kill the Starburn girl before she reaches the throne. The countdown had begun, and for the first time, the galaxy held its breath, not for war, but for a decision made by a human who once only wanted spare parts and peace. Now, he stood beside a queen whose voice could bend machines and hearts alike, and whatever came next, they would face it together. The royal warship blocked the sun. Its shadow stretched over the throne city of Velshara, turning golden towers into cold silhouettes. People in the streets looked up in silence, knowing that the final moment had come. Inside the palace, guards whispered and servants hid. Everyone feared what would happen next. The throne room, once used for celebration and command, now stood empty, except for one man sitting on the high seat. King Athikar, ruler by blood only because everyone who stood before him had been erased. He leaned on the armrest made of silver bony and watched the sky through the stained glass. She returns, he whispered to himself. That cursed girl, far outside the palace, on a stolen ship now patched with human tools. Sira and Jace stared down at the city that had once been hers. Her hands trembled slightly as the view came into focus. "I remember this place," she said, "but not like this. Are you ready?" Jace asked, tightening the straps on his old vest. "No," she said, "but I'm going anyway." The ship landed on the edge of the capital, its engines crackling from damage. Sira stepped out first, wearing a long robe woven from parts of her past a soldier's belt, a royal sash, and a mechanic's jacket that once belonged to Jace. They didn't sneak in. They didn't hide. They walked through the wide gates openly. Together, the city guards tried to stop them, but one look at her eyes, and they stepped back some. Dropped their weapons, some fell to their knees. The throne room doors opened on their own as Sira stepped forward. Ithikar stood when he saw her, a cold smile across his face. "So you lived," he said. "Little girl with too much power." Sira's voice echoed across the golden walls. "I was never little. You just kept me chained. You will not take my throne," he growled. "You are alone." But Jace stepped beside her and said, "She's not." Ithikar's laugh was dry and bitter. "A human," he said. "Of course." Sira raised her hand and the air trembled, light poured from the roof, and something ancient awakened inside the palace stones. Glyphs lit up under their feet, symbols that hadn't been seen in centuries. "You sit on a throne that was built to listen to one bloodline only," she said. "Not yours." Ithikar raised his arm, calling the royal blade from its resting place, but it did not come to him. It floated to her instead, gentle as a leaf in wind. The guards in the chamber dropped their weapons and bowed. One by one. "I name myself queen," Sira said. "Not to rule through fear, but to end it." Jace watched in silence as her body glowed with quiet light, her eyes soft but fierce. Ithikar screamed and lunged forward, but Sira didn't move. A wave of force pushed him back into the throne he had stolen, and there he stayed, frozen in a beam of pale energy, trapped in the very seat he once thought was his. The room fell still. The throne accepted her presence. The light changed color, from harsh white to calm gold, and the world outside felt it. Storms stopped, fires faded, and across star systems, old warning signals shut down. Jace stepped forward, standing beside her at the throne's edge. "You really did it," he said, voice low. Sira looked at him, not like a queen to a subject, but like one soul to another. "I only did it because you didn't run," she said, "even when I told you to." Outside, the people gathered in the streets, unsure what to expect. But when the doors opened and Sira stepped out, hand in hand with the human who had saved her, the silence turned into cheers. No one expected a queen to return, and even fewer expected her to choose a man from a forgotten world. But she had, and that one choice, simple, human, impossible, had shaken the stars themselves. Jace looked at the horizon, where warships were already turning away. "What now?" he asked. Sira smiled. "Now," she said, "we build something better.